I've seen a loser win and a sad man grin, heard an honest man lie. Jobber's job, it's pretty much what they do. Except, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Occasionally, even the biggest jobbers have found their hands raised after the bell. And just a few of these times are the subject of this video. Because today... a big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters like Baba Yaga and Caleb Robinson. Thank you all so much. Okay, before we begin, allow me to ask that you make sure that you're subscribed to this channel and that your notifications are working, and if you could, please give this video a big thumbs up because it really does help out the channel. Now, with all that being said, let's get into the list. Dwayne Gill. Dwayne Gill was a classic jobber, and you only remembered him because his name was so unbelievably unremarkable that it somehow became memorable, if that makes any sense. Just seeing his name alone, and you knew that there was no chance that this guy would become a made man. Or was there? Gill started off in WWF as a jobber straight away in 1991, even becoming a member of the Job Squad in 1998 after his return to the company. But it was from there that he would become a parody of Goldberg, renamed as Gillberg. Dwayne would defeat Christian for the Light Heavyweight Championship, which is a bonus entry for this list. Now, yes, it was extremely shocking that this classic jobber actually won gold, especially over a future NWA and World Champion. However, stranger still is that this resulted in Gillberg picking up a small series of wins, particularly that against Mark Merrow. At this time, Merrow was on his way out of the company, and his final televised WWF match on regular television in the United States was against Gillberg, where he promised to quit the company if he lost. Now, the Wild Man did have just one more appearance for WWF television, but that was for the UK only pay-per-view of Capital Carnage. So as far as many Americans were concerned, Mark Merrow's final appearance for the World Wrestling Federation was losing to the man who somehow is the longest recognized light heavyweight champion for WWF, Dwayne Gill. Barry Horowitz. Mr. No Gimmicks Needed Chris Candido wound up becoming the reason why Barry Horowitz patted himself on the back just a little bit harder. Horowitz started out as the Stretcher Jack Hart, wrestling in Memphis before joining the WWF in 1987. From there he began going by his real name, Barry Horowitz, and he was mostly a jobber. Now, he did have some early wins, one of which in particular we will be getting back to later on, but it was this match against Chris Candido, who was going by the name Skip at the time, that is acknowledged by WWE as Horowitz's first win. This was viewed as an absolutely terrible use of Candido, who was an absolute all-star for both Smoky Mountain Wrestling and ECW. After defeating Skip, the two would feud going into SummerSlam 1995, which would lead to Barry getting yet another win, his first on pay-per-view. He would go on to collect sporadic wins here and there, but for the most part, this was the definitive win for Horowitz during his second act in professional wrestling. L-Kid. Sean Waltman has gone through many names. X-Pac, Six, the Cannonball Kid, the Kamikaze Kid, the Lightning Kid, L-Kid, but it was probably when he became the 1-2-3 Kid that was the biggest change throughout his entire career. Now, surprisingly, he came from a thorough background, training under the likes of Boris Malenko and Karl Gotch, among many others. This would lead to his eventual debut in the WWF, where he would begin as nothing more than mere enhancement talent. That is, until he scored a huge shock victory over Razor Ramon on an episode of Monday Night Raw. Waltman would become the 1-2-3 Kid in order to celebrate his victory. Razor would begin offering thousands of dollars to the Kid for a rematch, only to see the Kid take the money and run. This led to Ted DiBiase mocking Razor over losing to the 1-2-3 Kid, only to end up eventually losing to him himself. James Ellsworth. Debuting in 2002, James Ellsworth didn't get his big break until 2016. He spent most of his time on the independent circuit before making occasional appearances as a rosebud with Adam Rose, but then he would get his shot at prime time by being a victim to Braun Strowman, declaring that any man with two hands has a fighting chance. Strowman of course demolished him, but he gained a small cult following from the ironic hipsters who liked the oddball little man. This led to him getting more spotlight within WWE WWE. Ellsworth was then set to become AJ Styles' tag partner against Dean Ambrose and John Cena. However, The Miz jumped Ellsworth and took his place instead. This began the rivalry between AJ and Ellsworth, which would continue when Styles chose the Chinless Wonder as his opponent for a one-on-one non-title match. However, then general manager of SmackDown Daniel Bryan would make Dean Ambrose a special guest referee, and the Lunatic Fringe would end up costing AJ the win, giving Ellsworth the W. This led to a rematch, but this time it would be for the belt, and Ambrose would end up causing Ellsworth to get the win again, this time via DQ, thus giving him 2 wins against AJ Styles, who was WWE Champion at the time. The Genius. Leapin' Lanny Poffo was never considered to be as successful as his brother, the Macho Man Randy Savage. However, one thing that they do have in common when it comes to professional wrestling accomplishments is that they both beat Hulk Hogan via countout. Macho was never able to get a pinfall or submission win over the Hulkster, only beating him by countout, and his brother was also able to do that himself. Lanny was going by the name The Genius at the time, and he got a one-on-one match in the WWF against then champion Hulk Hogan. During the match, Mr. Perfect grabbed the title belt and hit Hogan with it while he was trying to get back into the ring. The Hulkster would stay down on the outside for a count of 10 and the Genius would be declared the winner. Mr. Perfect then took the belt with him and destroyed it after the match. Brooklyn Brawler. If there was ever a king of jobbers, and again that's if there was such a thing, the Brooklyn Brawler for an entire generation would definitely be the right guy for the job. Steve Lombardi began wrestling in the WWF in 1983 going by his real name, but he was still very much an enhancement talent. It wouldn't be until 1989 when Terry Taylor split from Bobby the Brain Heenan that his famous gimmick would debut. Heenan claimed that he made Terry Taylor a star, and that he could do the same with anyone. So he had the Red Rooster get ambushed by the Brawler, introducing the character to the entire world. Yup, that's right, the Brooklyn Brawler was once a member of the Heenan family. This led to a feud with Taylor, which the Red Rooster easily won. After that, Bobby and the Brawler would go their separate ways in a mutual separation, and just like the other jobbers on this list, while the Brawler wasn't completely winless, he was still counting the lights more times than not. However, even though he's most known for losing, there was one win in particular he had over a wrestler who's most known for making other wrestlers lose, and that is the Golden Shovel himself, Triple H. Lombardi found himself in a 3-on-1 match, going against one Hunter Hearst Helmsley, with the Brawler teaming with both Taka Michinoku and Funaki. Chris Jericho would interfere in the match, allowing for the Brooklyn Brawler, WWF's most classic jobber, to pin that of WWF's most classic shovel machine, which I have to say was a really sweet moment for me. Barry Horowitz. Again. And finally, we go back to Barry Horowitz just one more time. Now, recently, I mentioned that Ken Shamrock actually started his WWF career back in 1989 as a jobber. But I didn't mention that he was a jobber for another jobber, and that jobber of course was Barry Horowitz. This was Shamrock's first match ever, and his only match for the WWF until he returned to the company in 1997, spending the time in between wrestling in Japan and, having an MMA career. But never forget that everything for Ken Shamrock all started by losing to Barry Horowitz. Well, there you go. If you were one of the jobbers on this list, then you might really know what it's like to win. But what are some other jobber victories that you want to talk about? Let me know down in the comments, and please make sure that you're subscribed to this channel and that you give this video a big thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, Dave knows.